Firstly, thank you very much for being here in the morning, and we have actually started on time. Thank you, Ravi, for that. And I'll try to stick to my 15 minutes because we would like everyone to be there. After virtual and augmented reality, thanks, Dan, that was a wonderful space to watch. 15 minutes of today's reality. I'm going to speak about a few things which we as educators are now looking into. A small background about myself. I am the youngest dean in the country. I became a dean when I was 25 years of age in a media school in Mumbai. And then I took over a business school after 5 years. Through these 7 years of academic space, what we understood was the distance between teachers and students is increasing in a very different way. Now, that's not in the classroom, that's in the virtual space. How many of us have heard of this unfortunate phenomenon known as Saraha? All right, so we are indulging into the same. Some of us have downloaded it. It's a good ego boost for us, for kids to come and tell us, or our friends to come and tell us, oh, ma'am, you're so good, you teach so well in class, or we tell our friends, this is amazing. There's this other side to it. And that's the side which I want to talk about, because I thought that being a young educator would make me a cool educator. I have trophies from my students in my classes, in my colleges, saying that the coolest dean, the best friend ever. And on March 27th, this year, you would have heard a very tragic story of a kid committing suicide on Facebook Live. It was a big thing from Bombay. He was my student. And that's where I start today's thing. We always feel that we are connected to our students. We always feel that there are some things we are doing well for our students. But as professors, as teachers, how many times do we actually look at their virtual life, the real life which they're leading? Because in the classroom, they have a different world of their own. I remember the student of mine, when it was my birthday, I'm coming down because I want to speak to you all face to face. On 17th March, he called me up, wished me happy birthday. We spoke, we understood. He said, so I asked him, what are you doing? You've been off the radar for 4 months. He says, sir, I'm just sorting things off. Don't worry. And things will be perfect in some time. 27th, we know what happened then. That's where I felt we let down someone. Because as teachers, as professionals, we are on social media, but how many times are we reading these students' timelines? Do you see their status messages? Do you see their Gmail status message, their Gtalk status messages, their Twitter? Are we actually putting a lot of concentrated effort to understand that part of it? Because sometimes I feel leave those breadcrumbs, feeling sad. And unfortunately, Saraha happened in between. How many of your students are getting pressurized today to be on Saraha because they want that single compliment from an anonymous space? And on top of that, the student goes and says, oh, thank you for the compliment. Can I know who this is? This is where the students are there today. They're trying to connect still in the virtual world. They still want that love. And we are overlooking this. To understand this a little further, you have pads on your table. Just to see how are we looking at our kids, can probably all of you all just jot down, if you remember, the last 5 things any of your student in totality put on Facebook. Do you remember some of the status message? Do you remember the check-ins? Can you just try to write it down? Well, you see your timeline, right? So one of the kids probably checked into the Central Mall at Gurgaon. One of the kids checked into somewhere watching a movie, Annabelle, at 11 o'clock in the night. Can you recall that? Can you recall any of the 5 last things your students did on your timeline? It's difficult, right? This is the only connect we have with our students today. We look for counseling in school. We look for counseling. Have we ever sat down with them to understand why are you socially inactive for the last 21 days? A kid who who tweets 20 times a day, who puts up Facebook status messages every time, who's on Instagram, and by the way, I know most of us know that, but 18 to 21-year-olds hate Facebook now because their parents are on Facebook. So they have now shifted to Snapchat and Instagram. So Snapchat is the next big thing. How many of us are looking at that? Because as knowledge givers, we think that this is distraction. For them, this is their life. I know students who crib. I put up a profile picture last week. Why didn't you like it? And there are fights on that. Where were you last night? Because you told me you're at home, but I saw you checking into a club with others. As professors, I definitely feel, because when this incident happened with me, I felt I let someone down. I thought I was it, because I tweet at least 50 times a day. I'm on all the social media spaces except Saraha. And I thought that I would be there to hear of a kid. If that day I would have just switched on his live feed, I could have just, because the worst thing was my office is 20 minutes away from that place. Could have rushed there. And from that time on, I've taken platforms to speak to principals, to speak to educators. We need to accept students' social media life. Why are we dismissive about it? It's not when we were in school or in college. So I was in college between 2003, 2006. We were the original Orkutias, if you remember Orkut that time. 3 years of phenomenon, I could understand that time my teacher saying, what is this? And there will be a deliberate attempt by them not to come on social media. Today, it's not there. And it's become so important for us to be a part of others, our students' social media life, because that's where we feel the connect is needed. Students are so proud. So students tag you all. How many of our educators have been tagged by their own students in photos, in statuses, on Teachers' Day? Thank you very much, ma'am. Everything, correct? Everyone has been tagged. We are so proud of it. Let's give it back. Because this is the only breadcrumb trail we have to see where our student is going. How many of our educators are on Snapchat? 1, 2, 3. So compared, obviously, Facebook remains high, then Twitter, then Snapchat and Instagram around. Have you seen your students' Snapchat trails? So that's investigative journalism. But on the other hand, people, when you see your students' Snapchat trail, so you see they live a life. So I happened to ask a student, why Snapchat? They say, sir, 24 hours mein sab cheez chala gaya. My parent doesn't know how to run Snapchat. It's a brilliant, so can you understand that this is escapism for them? And this is a dangerous time. And that was very well said, that Zuckerberg has come out and said it will be hours when they'll be spending versus minutes. Scary as educators. Because they do use this to communicate so many times, so many things, which we feel is dismissive. It's not important. Now is not the time when we were in school or college that you would take the phone and keep it off. No. Thanks to Mr. Ambani, everything is free today. I mean, you're virtually walking in 4G without anything. You can't take this off. It's high time we shake hands with it. Because when we talk about counseling, what counseling are we talking about? Students don't want to walk up to counselors today. But believe me, at 2 o'clock in the night, when we talk, someone pings because they know that you're accessible on WhatsApp. A student pings me, sir, are you awake? And I happen to say, yes. 2.5 hours we ended up chatting. 2.5 hours. Will a counselor be available at 2 o'clock in the morning for someone to just open up? Student-teacher relationship is going a very different way. And the more we run away from it, the more we're creating a big distance. Because it's not a 10 to 6 for a student and a teacher today. They want an access to you at 9 o'clock in the night just to ask a doubt, nothing else. Ma'am, tomorrow there's a test. Can we solve this? I have this doubt. We were scared of our teachers because that time tech wasn't there to support this. So I couldn't pick up the landline and call my teacher, maths teacher at 10 o'clock in the night. You wouldn't dare do that. But today things have changed. Why are we not adapting it? Why can't we have 24/7 counseling lines in school only online? Because we have this WhatsApp group, right? We have these active WhatsApp groups. And unfortunately, the school and the college WhatsApp groups only happen to be active only for two things. One, kal lecture hai. And B, main nahi aa raha hu. Or teacher says, I'm not taking the lecture. Can we make these things more active amongst us? Because every day there is someone in our circle, on our timeline, trying to express to you or to the world that things are not fine in my life. We can't expect a 19-year-old friend to pick up that crumb. They expect us. Because for this, the parents are out of the picture. And then we understand this whole thing, why is my kid always online? That's a question which most of the educators are asked by their parents. Ye sab time baitha rehta hai, aisa karta hai. We call it the thumb game. I call it the thumb life. It's there. And as much as we keep running from it, it's the worst thing ever. I really encourage all the educators here that we need to take in social media more seriously. We need to understand it, and to understand it, we need to be an active player on it. We can't have someone else running your own WhatsApp or your own Facebook. We can't have that. Because all that student of yours wants is when he tags you, you say thanks, and in return, believe me, the best gift you can give him or her is when you tag him and say, proud to be with you, or proud to have you as a kid. Because I have 15 minutes, already a thing has been made. Just a reminder that we are cool teachers. We have those certificates with us, proving that we are good educators. But even in today's time, we are losing kids to a world which somewhere is not explanatory to us, but let's not run away from it because it's about to get worse. Thank you very much for hearing me out. Thank you.